6th, 2026, and we are on day 2093 days, 2093 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. That's the borderland. The borderland. El Paso is I call them the Siamese sister city of Juarez, Mexico. There's only a a gate, a bridge that separates the two. You can just walk right over the bridge. You don't need a car. And so that's the borderland, and it is the epicenter of, it looks like everything. It looks like the epicenter of everything, even this conflict right now in Iran because of Qatar. You could call it Qatar, because that's directly linked to Fort Bliss and all the deployments that our soldiers made to Qatar. And we know through our son that his reports that the corruption within the military and in his unit was so bad at Qatar, that he thought, why in the world did I join the military? It was so bad. And of course, his father is a 30-year veteran, 30 years, and he was so excited. His grandfather, 23-year veteran, his other grandfather, over 20-year veteran. Our family has, a lot of years dedicated um, in the military. And so Richard was very excited to join, but when it came to Qatar, when it came to Fort Bliss and his unit being deployed to right there, the Strait of Hormuz, right? The Strait of Hormuz, right there by Iran. He was like, wow, this is really bad. And we've heard now that the investigations that have proven the suitcases full of money, quote unquote, the suitcases full of money for bribing individuals. And it really clarifies how someone can flip flop, these online influencers that were one way, and then the next minute they are the opposite way. How did that happen? Well, was it suitcases full of money that made that happen? Because that's what's being reported, right? But and this weekend was just wow. There's always breaking news in Richard's case, right? Always breaking news. I'm like, gosh, is there one day where there's not breaking news? Nope, not in Richard Halliday's case. Every day is breaking news. And so here we are at day 2093, days since Richard was forcibly removed because he was a whistleblower. And it started in Qatar. And of course, it continued there on Fort Bliss and in El Paso, Richard's whistleblowing. And his reports, I have to make it very clear, his reports um, uh, initiated, triggered investigations, which included audits. And we were told that there were these investigations and audits going on. And I don't even know if Brigadier General James Stewart understood that it was our son's whistleblowing reports that had triggered the investigations and audits on Fort Bliss, because Richard's general was General Clem Coward, and of course his conflicts of interest with the Hart family, the prime suspects in the murder of our son, was a bit problematic for the military, and so he was removed before we even got there, and so here comes Brigadier General James Stewart, now a Major General, and and uh, and he wasn't. He wasn't prepared at all when we met him. He didn't have answer. We were told that they would all be prepared with answers. He wasn't prepared at all. And we saw it in front of our own eyes, him transform into probably a decent general into a total monster. They sent him away for a while, because he told us too much. He told us about the audits. And his, of course, um, Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz told us about bringing in the young girls during the COVID lockdown. To party with the soldiers in the barracks, and we corroborated that with other testimony and evidence. Um, and that was, of course, with DES Thomas Kane, Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Kane. And when you have a military base that's been infiltrated by the cartel and a unit by the cartel, of course, we know CID agent Tavita Nusa, who's a prime suspect in our son's murder, what is cartel. And in 2021, he had his badge revoked and he was separated from the military. So, and of course, he's the cousin of the Hart family, right? He's related to the Hart family, the Samoan connection, right, with his brother, Major Solomon Nusa, who was uh, mortuary operations. So if you're wondering how they stole Richard's body off of Fort Bliss, you don't have to really wonder too hard because we've got the answers. And it, you know, it's clear that they've had the power to go into Richard's room when you are Richard's platoon leader, when you are CID, when you have conflicts of interest that are wowzers with the commander, uh, then you have, of course, the ability to forcibly remove Richard from his barracks room. And because this is the platoon leader involved, the arms room is not accessible to just anybody. You have to be a platoon leader, right? To get access and open the arms room, and that's the place where they took him. It's a soundproof room, and they took his life there. They took his life, and then they stole his body off of Fort Bliss, and they trafficked his body to Juarez, Mexico, very close, and uh, there is a narco disposal site there with individuals that are connected to the suspects, and that's called Plenitude Crematoria. And in 2025, summer of 2025, thanks to President Trump, that place was raided, or police were called onto that place, and over 400 bodies were discovered in rotting conditions, rat infested conditions, filthy conditions, not licensed, connected to the funeral home industry there that is transnational, connected to funeral homes in El Paso, Texas. And of course, those funeral homes make contracts with Fort Bliss with the mortuary operations. And this is a body dumping ground that is a flesh peddler because they give urns full of uh, crushed. I wouldn't recommend anyone choosing um, choosing cremation. I really wouldn't, not in today's day of, because we just had that in Colorado, 200 rotting bodies discovered, and the families were given urns full of uh, cement, construction dust, right? Cement dust in urns to fool them while they are. What are they doing with the bodies? Are they are How long do organs last that you can harvest them? Are they taking the skin? Are they taking the corneas? Are they taking selling the bodies for research? Are they selling the bodies overseas for evil fluid drainage um, to make some kind of weird witchery dolls? You know, this is, in Ukraine, they were doing that. Uh, it's just crazy what we have all discovered in our investigation. So, yes, thank you, Laura, for coming on so late on a Sunday. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Sunday. And um, it is just everyday breaking news that we have to focus on getting all of the news out there. But I hope you don't forget to really celebrate life, right? To celebrate life, especially on beautiful Sundays like it was today. So going back to um, what is going on here is the defense contracts got got infiltrated by the cartel. Um, the defense contracts, we know for a long time. I can tell you that. I can tell you that from my years being a spouse. The defense contracts are full of fraud, waste, and abuse. They've been like that for a long time, and it's gotten worse and worse. And the cartel got a hold of it, and of course, we have a huge cartel called the El Paso cartel that are in alliance with the Mexican cartels, such as the CJNG and the Juarez cartel, and of course the Sinaloa cartel, and then you have the offshoot, the arm, the La Linea cartel that is derived right there from the Mormon faction colonies, Nova Casa Grandes area in Chihuahua. These are dual citizens because of the Mormon colonies. Um, and they are dual citizens and dual agents. We know that because of um, Connell Wetton, a assistant special agent in charge at the El Paso FBI field office, who is responsible for leaking our son's identity to the cartel. Um, because Richard was a whistleblower and putting in reports. And so it was like, okay, we know that Tavita Nusa with Nadal Bayim and the Hart family and all of that are connected to the cartel. Um, and and it's like calling them up and giving our son's name um, to the very platoon leader, to the CID, right? To Vita Nusa, to the mortuary operations, to the generals, because we know with Sean Bernabe and James Eisenhower, the commander of Fort Bliss, gave the unlawful order to have the very crime scene, the arms room, renovated at no expense spared, and without following the bidding protocols that are necessary. Just cover up the evidence, right? Just cover up the evidence. Um, and so this was absolutely, uh, you know, in conjunction, aiding and abetting cartel. This is, and then of course they've been designated what they are, a terroristic organization, and not so foreign, right? Not so foreign. Some of them foreign, some of them not so foreign, because they've infiltrated. And we know that that unit, Richard's unit, was deployed to Qatar. So the deployment of of cartel, infiltrated cartel, weaponized with the United States, by the United States Army, uh, known or unknown, seen or unseen. It doesn't matter. It happened. And they were in Qatar and they were up to no good and they were doing such terrible, terrible things there with the trafficking, with the fraud, waste, and abuse right there at the Strait of Hormuz that Richard was like, oh my goodness, he didn't say it that way. He probably said a few choice words, right? But he's like, he told his dad, he told his grandfather, he told me, he told his grandmother, he told his siblings that he is not, he's changing his plans. He's not going to make the military a career. It is too corrupt. It is too dirty. It is so bad that he made a mistake, and he's going to keep. Uh, put in his time that he promised, and he's going to get out and get the hell out fast. Um, so, what he tried to do, what he did do, is file the reports. He did the right thing. He filed the reports uh, to save our country, right? And so, you know, uh, I told him, I told him, Richard, um, well, Richard's just such a hero. He's such a hero because he was a distinguished honor graduate for basic training, fastest runner, the guidon bearer. He gave it his all. And President Trump, the letter that's right behind my shoulder, recognized that. And and he got back to El Paso, got back on American soil, and said, "Well, I'm going to file. I'm going to do what I can." Uh, and so, because he made rank very quickly, and so he filed, and the cartel came after him, which includes the El Paso cartel. It includes their alliances, the Mexican cartel, even the Sinaloa cartel at the highest levels. I mean, my goodness, they sent Ray Velarde, the billionaire kingpin El Mayo's attorney, to Richard, and shortly thereafter, Richard was killed. Um, so it was a combination of the infiltrated cartel, the El Paso cartel, and the Mexican cartel, and that means that they're working together, right? They're working together with these contracts and with the protection of the El Paso cartel, protecting them from scrutiny by infiltrating the justice system and the law enforcement system. And so, they were like protecting the Jeffrey Epstein pipeline, because this is the Iran Contra scandal on steroids, Iran Contra 2.0. This is the trafficking pipeline. You name it, weapons for drugs, you name it, for fuel, and then it got because you have to pay off people, or you have to compromise people if you don't want to pay them off. So you traffic the children, you traffic the young girls, you traffic women, right? And you compromise individuals, you videotape them, and so we have documented all of that now. And so did Richard, because Richard was in possession of evidence that he turned in to CPS, to the law enforcement there, the FBI, the IG, um, you know, uh, uh, 911, the El Paso Police Department, and we have documented all that and corroborated it with evidence. Um, so this is not something that we're making up. So uh, what is very, very clear here is that the defense contracts are so bad, were so bad with fraud, waste, and abuse. And I'm talking about, um, prior to, well, during this time, they were just so bad, these contracts. And we know that the El Paso cartel, that includes Woody Hunt, has a huge portion of the military contracts for housing. And we know that there's fraud involved with that because of, um, uh, remember, before he before he was compromised, Tony Gonzalez reported on that, right? And now, he had to resign because he's so compromised, instead of staying with what he knew was right and reporting how Woody Hunt and his business dealings were corrupt. He started taking money from Woody Hunt, and things went downhill after that for him, right? Things went downhill, and now his life, well, I think he's in really big trouble. He's in really big trouble because he took the corrupt route, which Richard never did. Richard never did. They tried to do whatever they could to him, and he never did. And that's what makes him so absolutely special. It makes me very proud to be his mother, and very sad, sad because the people are so evil that they don't want to preserve what's good and what's right. They want to compromise people, and they want to, just like what they did to Brigadier General Stewart right in front of our eyes. It was kind of like in Lord of the Rings, where they take goodness, and they they turn it into an orc, right? They turn it into an orc. They want to bring destruction. This is how evil these cartel groups are. These defense contractors, okay, and the defense contractors have a huge a huge portion of them. And in Richard's case, it's a Mormon faction. Because of this border, because of the Mormon colonies, because of the dual citizen, dual agent, that they could take advantage of this. And you see that with Alejandra de la Vega working for Governor Abbott, inviting Governor Abbott to her home to party with CJNG leadership. That's right, CJNG, the flesh peddler cartel's leadership. That's right there in El Paso. Okay. And with her husband, Paul Foster. But Alejandro de la Vega at the same time was working for the governor's office in Chihuahua, Mexico. We talk about a double agent, dual citizen, a conflict of interest. And what was she doing over there? Well, she was, with the finance, economics, right? But what was she really doing was sitting on the commissions of military and law enforcement intelligence for the Chihuahuan people, right? Uh, and then she had access to American databases under Governor Abbott. And here you have Governor Abbott and Maru Campos, the governor of Chihuahua, Mexico, being caught in a treasonous deal. And treasonous is not, it is kind of my word. I've been saying they've been committing treason for a long time. But this is AMLO, right? This is a very respected former uh, president of Mexico, saying what they did, it was treasonous. And now the people of Mexico are calling for Maru Campos to be um, absolutely spend 40 years in prison because of her treasonous agreement with Governor Abbott. And what was the agreement on? It was on intelligence databases, right? It was cameras all over Juarez that the FBI, CIA could access, right? They could access cameras all over Juarez, Mexico, where, it's like, okay, they traffic Richard's body over there. They're not looking at the cartels or not looking at the crime. They're looking at the whistleblowers, okay, or the people, and using it against the people, their access to these cameras. And then it was reciprocal. It was reciprocal. The Mexican cartels and could have access to our law enforcement databases. And we reported that before this had been confirmed, that there was a breach in our databases, that the cartel could go in and see what cases were being investigated, who was investigating, what were the agents' name, what were the informants, who were the whistleblowers. And they didn't have to go through what we've gone through with all the open records requests. Oh gosh, that's a long story. Um, the obstruction of justice in our case, when we are supposed to have access to, through the Open Records um, Act, and then the cartel don't even have to go through this channel, and some well, I think a lot, but some journalists don't even have to go through the proper channels. We caught journalists having access. We've caught um, individuals that started bullying us, started harassing us, started terroristically threatening us, that had access to all of our information in our family. They had they had access all the way back, all the way back. They had access on every one of our family members. And praise God, we have such a beautiful family. They were probably like, "Oh my gosh, this is really a beautiful family. Does beautiful families really exist?" Yeah, the Halliday family. It's a beautiful family. It really exists. My husband served with total honor, and for 30 years, 30 years, what an accomplishment. And we have just a lawful, beautiful family. And, people want to make you feel bad for that. But, that's a lot of hard work. That's a lot of hard work to create a beautiful family. And so, for them to attack it, them to try to smear Richard, when he worked so hard, even being under attack, and when you are made to live in a dirty barracks where they're bringing in young girls to have relations with the soldiers to compromise them because they're underage, and bringing in drugs and bringing in booze and all of that, staying drunk all the time, and you have command sergeant major forcing parties on you, and then they get uh, all riled up, and they take you and strip you and make you drink booze or whatever. And Richard, being the black belt that he is, I can't even imagine. I know that he even sustained some scars from trying to protect himself, right? Trying to protect himself from this chain of command that was so despicable and derelict in their duty. Um, and not only that, but treasonous in what they were doing, compromising with the cartel, being it the El Paso cartel, or the Mexican cartels, or these dirty contractors that they that they were in bed with them, sometimes literally. So no, it's hard work, um, to say I rather burn my money than spend it on whores and blow. And you risk your life doing that in El Paso, right? And then they have control over the cameras. And guess what? This weekend, there was, of course, an attempt on President Trump and his administration on those that are, in his cabinet that showed up for this White House Correspondents' Dinner. And, this uh, Allen, Allen Thomas, what is his name? Um, Colin, what is it? Colin, oh well, figure it out. But Thomas Allen and his family, totally with the military contractors, okay? Totally with the military contractors, totally, this connection. What is the chances that his sister is at Texas Tribune, right? That's Woody Hunt. Okay, Texas Tribune, that's Woody Hunt. What is his chances that his mother and father are going to live with a hunt, right? With a hunt. That's what are the chances of that? That they are in the same thing of drones, everything you need from drones and aircraft, and that you're doing contracts with all of that, and then here comes President Trump, under budget, ahead of schedule. Okay, under budget, ahead of schedule, always calling out the fraud, waste, and abuse. And the reflecting pool is the latest that he called out, that there were bids for contracts to fix the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C., because it was in such disrepair and in bad shape. And they, had bids, and the bids were like 300 million plus dollars, and it would take 3 years. Well, he called up his favorite swimming pool contractors, um, good ones that he knew, that because he's a builder, and he got it for $2 million, 300 million to $2 million, and will be beautiful in 1 week. In 1 week. So this is such a good example of the fraud, waste, and abuse that was going on at the Pentagon, that was going on in our defense. Uh, um, that was not. We were getting shoddy work, and we were paying so much money. So the fraud, waste, and abuse, see something, say something, that was all like a show for these evil people. And they were absolutely ripping off the American people, absolutely ripping them off. And you don't need me to tell you. All you have to do is go to pictures of Qatar, and see how they've been ripping us off, you know. And that, brings it all full circle, that this shooter, he's not a lone shooter. This is a direct result of defense contractors losing their mind, because they've been ripping us off, and now you have someone that says, no, no, we don't want to be ripped off anymore. We don't want to be ripped off at the border. We don't want to be ripped off with defense contracts. We don't want to be ripped off at the VA. We don't want to be ripped off, anywhere, through USAID. We're tired of being ripped off. It doesn't cost that much money to run a government, and they have just up the antes, and that means our taxes go up, up, up. And they have hidden taxes, and the worst hidden tax is called inflation. That's the worst hidden tax. And then, so we've had inflation ever since 1971, since they got rid of the gold standard, right? So, where they could multiply the money, because they didn't have to have gold to back it up. So yeah, they've ripped us off, and you can look at when inflation really started, and it's really flatlined through our history until around 1971, and then it just goes straight up. It just starts, and that is like the worst type of tax. where you could go to the grocery store and buy a whole cart full of food for $25, and now, it costs you hundreds of dollars for less food, and less quality food. So, and what does that mean? That means, they try to get us used to that there is inflation. But no, inflation means that they are messing with our money, because inflation is that our money is not worth what it used to be. Why? Because they're messing with money. A dollar should be a dollar, should be a dollar. And that is, of course, that's an economic class, but um eh, this fraud, waste, and abuse includes how they're paying for this fraud, waste, and abuse through raising taxes or the hidden tax like inflation. So it's all part of it, right? It's all part of it. And having very corrupt people in the Federal Reserve Bank. Why we have a Federal Reserve Bank, I don't know. We don't need a Federal Reserve Bank. And now we owe this private bank. It's not federal, it's not a government bank, it's a private bank. And we owe them what, 37, 38 trillion dollars. How's that going to happen? So, and you have a president that went to the Wharton School of Finance. So you have someone that has had these economic lessons and is a builder, understands bidding, understands fraud when it comes to contractors, and shoddy work when it comes to contractors, and good work when it comes to contractors. And so, they're losing their minds, these contractors. And so then you have, they can't tell you outright, oh my gosh, you're taking away my fraud, waste, and abuse. You're taking my cow away, right? My milk cow, my golden, uh, my goose that lays the golden eggs. You're taking that away. My gravy train of that, his name is fraud, waste, and abuse on defense contracts. Well, they can't say that. So they say, oh, it's because of racism, or oh, it's because, you don't like immigrants, or something like this, something ridiculous. And then you find out that those very people are the ones causing all that trouble with funding the KKK, right? We found that out this weekend. It was just a wild everything coming out. That they're funding it so that they can use it as an excuse and even make money off of it, right? Instead of just saying, well, we really are criminals and we really love fraud, waste, and abuse, and we're willing to kill for it. And this is what Richard was reporting: the fraud, waste, and abuse, and the criminal activity, and they were willing to kill him for it. And they're willing to kill President Trump for it. So it's not like, oh, this stage thing. No, there's so much more evidence that these defense contractors, which is the Allen family, right, so connected to all of this, and the aircraft, right, the aircraft, the stuff you need to glue the aircraft together and whatnot, and then of course the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and um, and I know a lot about that. Not a lot about that, but I know about that since I was my whole life, because that's what my dad did. Nike and Hercules. He was a Nike and Hercules repairman, right? In the silos. I was born at White Sands Missile Range. So, my parents belonged to the German American Club, all these German scientists that were brought over because of jet propulsion, right? Because of what they were just experts in jet propulsion for drones. And they've been doing the drones for a long time. And sometimes people mistake them as alien aircraft, right? Because of all of the experiments going on with drones, this kind of flight, this jet propulsion flight. So, um, this weekend, absolutely, and I'm so glad that President Trump is okay. I'm so glad, and you know, it can't. Well, I believe it because of everything we learned in our son's case that they're willing to be so violent, right? To be so violent, um, uh, just to even run through a gala like that, a beautiful dinner, trying to bring people together, talking about free speech. President Trump, he could be very bitter at the media. He has every reason to be bitter at the media, and yet he knows that this as the president of the United States, that he has to set that aside and he has to hold these White House correspondence dinners to bring people together, to keep America strong no matter what, right? To keep America strong and to bridge the gap while trying to create an economy that's legitimate, that is a legitimate economy, that they don't need these huge defense contracts, right? Um, of fraud, waste, and abuse, that they could actually produce something. And you see his attempt to do that. And one thing that he said, that was, oh my goodness, I could tell that his father was German. And if you don't know that, President Trump's father was a German immigrant, like my mother and like my grandparents, right? My grandparents. But one thing he said that just reminded me of my grandparents, is if you go to a restaurant and the door of the restaurant is dirty, don't go in, because if the front door of the restaurant is dirty, that is supposed to welcome you, right? The kitchen is dirty, and so don't go in. And he said, this is why he is cleaning up Washington, D.C. It's the front door of the United States. And if the front door of the United States is dirty, then the rest of the country is dirty. And he wants to clean it up. And I thought, that was right out of my grandparents' mouth. That is exactly what they told me. Don't go in, and avoid restaurants. A lot of times you have to be very careful because the kitchens can be very dirty. I like going out to eat. Uh, we have our favorite places, but yeah, that was just absolutely, I knew exactly what he was saying. And now we have him cleaning up Washington, D.C., and the reflecting pool. And he got the Lafayette um, fountains working again. All of that is so special. All the memorials to make them beautiful and have beautiful grass, and the White House have fly that big flag, right? He put in the big flagpole at his own expense, and of course, uh, putting in the ballroom. And people are thinking, oh, this is staged because this is excuse to do the ballroom. Uh, you know, they these defense contractors and the people that hate him don't want his expertise. They don't want his years and years of building experience, his contracting experience, his fundraising experience, his love to make things beautiful and glorious. And the Bible always says for beauty and glory. Some things we just do for beauty and glory. We like the bling because we want the beauty and glory, right? We don't want a box building. We want beautiful architecture. We should. And we want it with gold and silver and crystals, and we want it. And if we don't want it, why not? Why is your heart dark? And for $39 trillion in debt, we should have a very, very beautiful country, very, very beautiful architecture, very beautiful roads, and beautiful grass, and everything. But people want fraud, waste, and abuse, and they want ugly. They want ugly. And so here comes this guy, Thomas Allen. I need to bring this whole thing up because um, I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's late, um, because I've been writing about him throughout the day. But uh, let me get. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that too. Yeah, Cole. Yeah, Cole. Thomas Allen, uh, running through when people are dressed up beautifully, in their finest clothes and trying to come together. And he just runs through to scare the hell out of them. Some people weren't scared, right? Some people are even beyond that right now. I feel I absolutely understand that because through this whole case, all the threats that we have gotten, all of the harassment, all of it's just been incredible what they've tried to do to our family. And you just say, I just can't worry about it. I can't be afraid. I have to march forward. And I think President Trump expressed that. And thank God he's brave. I guess you get your bravery. God gives you this bravery, right? And we have a lot of reasons to be brave right now, a lot of reasons. And I'll be talking about that next week. The next week is going to be a big, big week. So many things have happened that I just don't feel like I'm at liberty to tell people directly right now until I get full information about what's going on. So, but this Cole Thomas Allen, wow, wow, he just wants to come in and um, and just destroy a party, something beautiful and good. Uh, People coming together, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, coming together, and yeah, just wanted to destroy that. And uh, I know of one lady that was there that was pregnant. I mean, really, what a jerk! What a jerk! This Cole, this Cole Allen is, and I think he's in big trouble. I think he's in really big trouble. Moreno, why am I delusional? Why am I, I mean, people, gosh, try to do this for 2,093 days. Try to do it every day. Try to do it. I think, uh, I think I've done a very good job because our son's case is not a cold case. And that's what they wanted it to be. They wanted our son's case to be a cold case. And we didn't let that happen. And I think it's just something to celebrate. So, go away. You don't have to come on if you don't like what I have to say. Our president, thank you, Mrs. Halliday. Thank you so much, Wendy. He is so busy cleaning up everything. He is. And, all of the accusations, he just blows them up because he's so transparent. He's out there every day. I mean, he gave 60 Minutes a interview today after everything. It's just he's always working and always transparent and always out there telling everyone what he's doing. It's just amazing. So, one other thing that I wanted to cover, because I just wanted to make it very clear that this Cole Thomas Allen is connected to the defense contracting and connected to El Paso um, defense contracting and Woody Hunt and Woody Hunt is a he is absolutely with Alejandro de la Vega and Paul Foster up to no good, and we call they're the narco philanthropists of the El Paso cartel. Yeah, absolutely, and really, yeah, really up to no good. Really up to no good. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up was this Portland cement reservoir or Portland cement lake that is really headline news in El Paso at this time. And, it's a big deal because there's an easy way. It shouldn't even be so discussed right now, right? Um, there's a problem. The problem is with uh, the dam. The dam is in bad shape because it's old. Maybe good concrete wasn't used. Maybe it was defective concrete. Who knows? But here, this was an old quarry. It's very deep. And because it's deep, we know, that it has good water. There's good water at Portland Quarry Reservoir. And why waste this opportunity? Drain drain it. They have like 13 pumps draining it right now. So that tells you that there's a natural spring because it's so deep. There's a natural spring and there's fish in there. So drain it. And when the place that we were living at in Germany, uh, very close to our house, we also had one of these natural spring lakes. And every year the Germans drained it and cleaned it. There was the fish were at the very bottom. There was enough water to keep them alive when they drained it to clean it, to make the water, because it was a swimming hole, right? It was a swimming pond, and we used to go swimming there. And so they would clean up this natural spring lake, and every year they drained it. So, and it was also a natural spring. So I don't see a problem with this. They need to drain it. They need to send in the divers. They need to send in, because it's very deep. And they need to send in like sonar, take a good look at this um, dam and repair it. Repair it. And then El Pasoans, that community that's around there, I think I heard it could give 600, maybe it was more, but I'm going to be 600 homes water for an entire year. It's good water. They need to drain it. And so I just think this is headline news. And there seems to be pushback to this simple solution to this problem. And why not want the safety of the community? Why not want the safety of the community? Not only the safety of the community, but the good health. Water, good water is, it's it. That's it. If you have good water, and I've been saying, uh, you know, God picked water for baptism for a reason. Water we can't live without it, and it has memory. That's why all this AI needs all this water, because water uh, has memory and we know it's conductive. So, that's not being delusional, that's just being smart. Water is very important, and God has told us that water is very important. And so, why not give the people of El Paso, the community there, natural spring water from Portland Reservoir called Cement Lake? Why not? uh, just drain out the water right now. They have 13 pumps right now doing that. But why not support that? Why is there pushback? That's what I don't understand. And some people have notified us why there might be some pushback. And so the people that are pushing back are up to no good. And so I think that the community, that's why I'm mentioning it. Um, El Pasoans need to stand up for clean water and demand that this reservoir be drained, that the dam be fixed, and that they can have use of that beautiful water and even go fishing and enjoy it and enjoy that water there at the border. So I did want to mention that. So thank you so much, everybody. It's all coming together, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you so much. And please share all of the information that we're posting. I want to go and post more on X and this and that, but I'm telling you, it is just um, right now there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So thank you for sharing. That really, really helps us out. God bless you, and I will be back.